Hi, I'm Kristen, and this is the Simple Handmade Everyday Podcast, where I talk about living a creative, intentional life. I like to chat about quilting, knitting, what I'm reading and watching, and a little bit about self-care, productivity, and keeping a cozy, organized home. I've got my cup of tea in hand, so grab yours and let's settle in for a chat. This is episode 112. Hello, friends! Oh my goodness! That was an unintentionally long break that I took from the podcast, but I'm not giving it up. I love to do this podcast. It's just that life has been very full in a very good way. And thank you so much to those of you who reached out to me to make sure that everything was okay. And I really appreciate that. So before we get going, I hope you've got something cozy to drink right now. I am drinking a cup of Dorset tea, which a friend of mine brought back from England for me. A few months back, stumbled upon a podcast. Oh gosh, I should have looked this up. It may be called Simple Things, and it's a podcast that goes with a British little small magazine called, did I say The Simple Things? I think it's The Simple Things. And I read that adorable magazine through Libby, the electronic, on my Kindle. I can read these magazines that I would never have access to through my library. And they always do a little interview with somebody, usually kind of an artist or something like that. And it's like they're having a cup of tea with them. So they always ask what they're drinking. And one time someone said Dorset. Oh, it's such a classic. And I had never heard of it. So I asked my friend, and she had also never heard of it, but she did a trip back to her home in England and she brought me back a box. So you can get it on Amazon. It's a very lovely kind of mild black tea. I'm drinking it with some milk. It's wonderful. I've been drinking it a lot lately. So, oh my goodness. It blew me away when I checked when my last podcast was, which was June 1st. So it has been 5 months. Things, it's so interesting to me, probably not to you, that I seem to have less time for the podcast now than I did when the kids were all home, like during the pandemic. But the reality is it's not like the hours aren't there. It's just I've been making different choices. And I think one of the things that has really kept me from podcasting is I haven't really been sewing. And when I mentioned that to people who have reached out, they're like, oh, we don't even care about that. So I hope that's true, because here I am not having sewn much at all. So what else has been going on? Well, one thing, another reason I think that I've been less inclined to podcast is I've been not on a social media fast, but really trying to very intentionally cut down social media. I've taken the apps off my devices, and on some, and I've been sneaking them on a little bit lately, and that's when I realized the good things about it that I'm missing. But it really came to a point for me where I just felt like everybody was selling something to me. And that even though in real life, the way we even consume our streaming content, we always buy, like Hulu without ads. I've really minimized how much advertising I'm exposed to. And here I am, I'm watching Instagram, I'm looking through Instagram, and every other person is trying to sell me something, their course or their product, or their links to their outfit or to those adorable throw pillows on their couch. And I just began to realize that this is really doing a number on me, thinking about how, my clothes aren't good enough. My house isn't good. There's always something that can be improved if I buy something. And I felt like I was kind of falling into that trap, and just said, you know what? I don't need to do that. I can spend, but you remember before social media. And so I really started reading. I thought, okay, I was also wasting time like during my work hours during a transition of when I had to move from one, task to another, and I didn't really want to start that task. I just do a little peek on Facebook, a little peek on Instagram, and just realized how time was getting away from me. So I needed something to kind of replace that. So I just started reading more. So if I sit down and I really have the urge to pick up my phone or my tablet, then I've got a book to read. And so I have read quite a lot this year. I really have. I think I've read about 30 books. And I've really enjoyed it. There have been fiction, nonfiction. I have finally knocked some things off my reading bucket list. One of my goals this year was to read better books, and there is nothing wrong with the cozy mystery that I so love, but I knew that I could challenge myself a little more. And I'm not reading War and Peace or anything, but I've read, we'll get to that, but just some better authors. And it's funny because one of my kind of lightweight nonfiction books came in, or fiction books, cozy mystery kind of things, came through on a Libby request, and I couldn't read it. I'm just like, I am just not as interested in these anymore. I haven't entirely given them up, but I think I'm getting a little bit pickier. So anyways, so that's kind of what's been going on. I don't know why I haven't been sewing. I did, in my last podcast, I'd made this Ridges quilt, and I said, I hope by the next time I talk to you, it will be done. And it has been sitting done on the ironing board ever since then. But today, I cut out the backing, I cut out the batting, and it's going to be long-armed, and I'm taking it, and right before I started the podcast, my friend Susan texted me, and I'm going to drop it off with her tomorrow. So, so that is going to be happening, and it would be really nice. It's in the room I'm podcasting in, to have something up on this wall. That was another one of my goals for this year, is to get things on the walls, and that has not really happened, but I have done a lot of other things around the house, which we will also get to. But I have missed this, and I just realized that I need to work it into my life in a little bit different of a way. Maybe this is like a Saturday afternoon right now, but I think, maybe I just need to record in the evening, and maybe not do the whole thing in one day, record and show notes and upload. And but my goal here is, at least right now in this very busy part of my life, to start recording at least once a month. I used to do it every 2 weeks, and that probably is not going to happen. So let's go for once a month. And so that's the other thing, is that work has been very busy. I have my own little marketing company, and it has just slowly grown with the number of hours that I put in, and I've added a few clients, and I almost didn't realize, how much I was working more and more. It kind of crept up on me. And then I took a big project, and it's building a website for somebody. He's already a client, but he's got like a new product, and he wanted a new website, and I bid on it, and I got it. I don't think anybody else bid on it. And I've done many of these side website projects in the last 4 years, only I didn't have such a busy business. And so I always had time in the afternoon to work on these projects, and there's no time for that. So it is an evenings and weekend project. So tomorrow on Sunday, it'll be like the third Sunday in a row that I have put time in on that project. And so there's just a little less time. I'm done. I'm not taking on any more projects at this point. So anyway, so that's all the good reasons, work. My husband and I have been doing a lot of what I call Sunday Fun Day, where we were going and doing something fun. We were doing over the summer. We did a lot of, e-bikes, long rides. I started playing golf. I've got a regular pickleball game, and my workout. And so sometimes we just like go for a drive, go out to eat. We went, go down and visit our kids in San Diego. So it's just been a lot of good things. So anyways, that's it for the brief update on where I've been for the last 5 months. And thank you for coming back and listening. I absolutely appreciate that you're here. So with that, let's get on to some quilting content. All right, so even though I have not been quilting, it doesn't mean I don't think about it. And I do have, so I'm taking the one quilt to Susan tomorrow, and I have 3 other completed quilts that need to be quilted. And I kept saying I was going to take her 2, and I just realized I was having such a mental block doing the backing and batting for this one small quilt. It's 60 by 36, I think. That I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do that one. And when that one's done, then I will bring her another one. And then I have 2 other ones that I'm going to send to my friend Deanna, my regular long armor in Chicago. if she wants them, I need to contact her about that. But I thought I would spread out the wealth a little bit. But so, and I think I've got the backing for all of them. They need to be pressed. I need to cut the backing to size. Just those small things. It's crazy. But so I've been thinking about that. I will get that done. But I have been itching to start a new quilt. I just didn't know what it would be, but now I think I do. So I'm going to talk about 4 books that people have sent me and that I've been sitting on for far too long. I feel bad about it. The first one is Family Favorites from Sherry McConnell and Chelsea Stratton. You may know them as Sherry and Chelsea, the fabric designers and also quilt designers, obviously. They have a new book out called Family Favorites, and I love this book. So let me tell you about it. What is very cool about number one, the photography is unbelievable. It's beautiful, but it is a book of blocks. So I'm going to flip through here. Here's the album mosaic block, what they call a fancy block, which I would call a chaining type block. Here's one called Happy Dance, which is a lot of half square triangles. There's a lot of really nice star. Like here's a double star block, which is, what is that kind of? That is a sawtooth star within a sawtooth star. It's like a little bit more complicated. So I would say this book has blocks that are very simple, like the chaining block, which is like, what would you call that? Like 4 patches. And then, a simple half square triangle, although as we all know, half square triangles may be simple, but it's not simple to get them all put together perfectly. So just many, I should have counted. There are many. Okay, let me just look at that. A lot, like well over 25 different block patterns. And then what they do is they put them together into sampler quilts. So and they come in different sizes. So there's some 12-inch blocks, 16-inch blocks, 18-inch, and 24. I love a big block. I cannot lie. So they put them together. Obviously, you could do mix and match. Well, I guess they're different sizes, but you get the point. You can put them together. You could do 1 block or 2 blocks with the chaining block in between. Like there's a lot of options here. But that quarter shop is doing a quilt along for one of the samplers, and it is called the Brightly Sampler. And you know what I didn't notice? These blocks are the 12-inch blocks, it looks like. And it is the most laid back quilt along in that it is just 2 blocks a month. So in this sampler, here I know this, but I just want to go. Okay, they use 5 different blocks, and of each of those 5 blocks, there are 4. There's 4 of that type of block, and through the quilt along, you just have to make 2 every month. So that seems super doable and a good way for me to dip my toe back in the quilting water, so to speak. So the biggest problem for me is going to be to figure out what fabric I want to use, what colors I want to do, because it's scrappy. But I know scrappy can kind of get out of hand. So I think I need to pull some fabric so it does have a little bit of a cohesive look to it. I believe there's the one that I think you can buy a kit from Fat Quarter Shop, which is their new fabric line, which I want to say is Laguna Sunrise. I hope I'm right about that. Let me go check. Yes, it is. It's Laguna Sunrise. And it's very pretty with some great kind of corals and aquas and grays and purple, and it's very, very pretty. So there are several of these sampler quilts within this one book, and the one on the cover is which one is that called? It is so beautiful. I'm flipping to find it right now. Here it is. It's called the Saltwater Sampler. Is that right? Yeah. Yes, it is. And it's got this great sashing and this 9-patch cornerstones. It's so pretty. So this is it's a great book. Oh, and okay. In addition to several sampler quilts of different sizes in it. At the end of the book, they have the North Star pillow. So they have a pillow, and what is the size of it? It's 18 and a half by 18 and a half. So, you could use so many of these other blocks of different sizes in the sampler quilt from, part of the book to make throw pillows as well. And there's also Starstruck pillow. And then they have these, there's several. They're all stars, very, very pretty pillow patterns. And then, pincushion patterns. So nice. So I think I'm going to jump on board with the Brightly sampler. Just, sew along low key with Fat Quarter Shop. And the whole thing's going to take, it just started. I think it started in October. This is officially November. But again, it's the most low key 2 blocks a month. So feel free to join me. I would love to know if you decide to join. All right. The next book that I want to talk about, the reason for the deep breath is that I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce it, even though I tried to look it online. I think it's Bogaji. It's The Art of Korean Textiles by Youngmin Lee. And you've probably heard of Youngmin Lee. If you've been to a quilt show lately, she seems to always be taking classes. I have several friends who have taken classes for this very cool style of sewing that she teaches. So Bogaji, and I'm so sorry if I'm saying that wrong, is the name for textiles that in Korea they use to wrap things. And it can mean a lot of different things. They can have different looks, but often a very patchworky type of look. So if you've ever taken one of her classes, this would be a fabulous resource for you. And it's got so many projects in it. But what's cool about it is that she spends a lot of time talking about the different types of fabrics. And from the classes that my friends have taken, it's often the fabric she uses can be a little bit stiffer. And it's a lot about the stitching. There's a way of stitching that's kind of like French seams where the raw edges are encased inside like a French seam, and then there's kind of a whip stitch look. And so what's cool about it is the seam allowances are very much sort of part of the design. And a lot of the fabrics that she uses, and she has a whole page of different fabrics folded in this very specific way where it's overlapping each other with kind of a light behind it so that you can see how transparent they are, because that's kind of important to the look. And so I feel like I'm explaining this very terribly, but so the way of stitching, seam allowances encased, kind of a whip stitch. And then if you wanted to say, and there's a project like this in the book, hang something in a window, it almost gives it if it's patchwork, like a stained glass look, because the seam allowances are part of the design. And same thing with some of these, like there's pin cushions or like table toppers, and the way in the stitches are seeing the stitches is part of the design, and not in a quilting way, but in how we're putting the fabric together. So anyways, it's a gorgeous book. I've had this one and the next one I'm going to talk about on my coffee table for like months, and it was just so fun to pick it up. Okay, I just picked up the book at random and see the project that I think she teaches a lot in class, which is called the dumpling shaped square mobile, like hanging, like a for a kid, like hanging things. And they look like little dumplings of this kind of stiffer fabric, and you can see how they're sewn together with the whip stitch on the outside, and they're kind of just in a string dangling, and they're so beautiful. So anyways, if you I will put a link obviously to all of these in the show notes, but I would definitely recommend this book, and I'm definitely going to try a project here. The other one, I've got 4 books. This is number 3. This is a book all about Kantha by Ekta Kaul, Kaul, Sustainable Textiles and Mindful Making. And I was very excited to look at this book because I've always wanted to do kind of a Kantha project. And to me, what Kantha is, just like that, a running stitch through either sometimes whole cloth or a patchwork fabric, and you just do that running stitch kind of close to each other, like somewhere between a quarter and a half inch apart, and just row after row after row. And it gives it, often with, you can do it with like a more colorful thread. And it just has this very cool, very textured look with that much stitching. And that's what I thought Cantha was. And oh my goodness, it is so much more. So this book is beautiful. It's a hardback book. It's like one of those ones, again, it's almost like, it's about an inch thick, but it's like a coffee table book. Like, you just want to pick it up because the photography is beautiful, and there's just so many projects and so many examples of what you can do. So when you have a book this big, obviously they go into the history of Cantha, and then a lot of the stitch techniques, which is more than just the running stitch, as it turns out. It actually, that is a big part of it, and probably the more famous part of it, but it's also just a lot of different embroidery stitches. And so Cantha a lot of it is just embroidery, but it kind of has a different vibe to it. And they just there's like these different motifs that appear. And so here I'm on a page where it all seems very doable, because most of it is running stitches, but it's done in a way that produces more of these sort of geometric patterns, and I love it. And there's this one section that I think is kind of cool, where so you can do, like, let's just say a half a dozen lines of a running stitch, and then you which is, let's say, going horizontally, and then you go through vertically and connect these to create designs. If you've ever done chicken scratch embroidery, which is often done like on gingham, it's the same kind of thing. By just doing these little things where you sort of connect your stitches, you come up with this whole secondary design. They're called interlaced stitches. That's the word. For such simple stitches, they have so many examples of unique ways to put them together to create very different motifs. And also there's a section on quilting where it reminded me of this sort of freestyle hand embroidery, hand quilting that I was doing for a while. Heidi Parks, I think, she teaches a class on it. And, where you just do these stitches in these wavy designs, and then you go off a different direction here, and then you do some straight lines. And there's all kinds of techniques that you can do that just really increase the texture a lot. Yeah, here I'm on a page with, just like, big curves going in different directions, and just the texture is amazing. So anyways, this book was way more than I thought it would be, like, in terms of the content. It's like a resource that I'm sure that I will be looking at forever. So that is called Cantha by Ekta Kaul, and again, I will put a link in the show notes. And the last book I want to talk to you about is, again, a little bit more directly quilting related, and it is the new Lori Holt book called Prairie Home. It is been put out by It's So Emma, which is a Fat Quarter Shop publication. And I got to tell you, I love these Lori Holt books. The way they put them together is amazing. So it is I want to say a softback book that when you put it on your shelf, it's got a straight spine, but when you open it up, it's actually spiral bound inside. They've hid the spiral binding, and I do love spiral binding because it's so much easier to keep a book open to where you want it. And it is huge, this book. It is 257 pages, and it is just Lori Holt in all her glory. So we've got, so it's very much based on her prairie style. I think she's had, a fabric line, a prairie fabric line recently, and all her lines, they work together so beautifully. The photography in this book is out of this world. I assume it's Fat Quarter Shop doing these photo shoots, and I think Lori Holt takes beautiful pictures too. So it is a wonderful, beautiful book, and it's very much like some of the Lori Holt books I've gotten in the past. It is chock full of block patterns and quilts that you can use in various different ways. There's table toppers, and there are more full-size quilts. And you've got the square table toppers and the more like long rectangular ones. I like them both for different purposes. And how this book is organized is by season. So if you like seasonal quilts, I think you will like this. One of my favorite quilts here is there's a lot of flower motifs here, but this one, it is called Grandma's Sampler Quilt, and it's not so much a sampler like the we were talking about before, but it looks like a giant cross stitch sampler. And Lori Holt's also very into cross stitch, and it says Home Sweet Home, and it has these Home Sweet Home is like most of the quilt, so it's big, and then she has like flowers around it, and then this what looks like a stitched border. Super, super cute. I was texting my friend Vicky after I got this book, because over there at My Creative Corner 3, because she has been on this project to create these quilts for her door at work, which is it's a big door, and she wanted to do them seasonally. I think eventually she might want to do one for every month. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there are so many great blocks in this quilt that you wouldn't have to, in this book, that you wouldn't have to do the full quilt. You could just do, like 9 of the blocks or something. So the one that I really liked is called the Prairie Butterfly Quilt, and it's this butterfly block. Super cute. There's a number of, there's a tulip block, and this one right here, a posy block. It's a posy in a basket, and it's very cute. So most of these quilts are kind of like one block repeating with, like this block has very interesting sashing, which is like a little, what is that? It's small. Maybe it's a little churn dash. Here's the one with the tulips, very cute. And so now, then there's the whole summer section, red, white, and blue, very cute. Then we have fall. And she's also, okay, so her sort of grand finale quilt in this is the one that's on the cover. I think it's probably called the Prairie Home, where it actually has a log cabin and trees and stars and this crow that appears in many of her motifs. And then a lot of star blocks. It's very cute. And here we've got a Going West quilt, and it is a covered wagon block. Very, very cute. And then in the winter section, there's of course a lot of Christmas, so like a cute little Christmas star. And there is a quilt. I would never actually probably make this, but I think it is adorable. It's called the Long Underwear Quilt, and it's a block that's like red, like full thermals, kind of long underwear thing. It's very cute. So if you love seasonal quilts, and you even just want to do, if you don't want to do a full thing of, trees or tulips or whatever, just so perfect to be able to just do like some table toppers. But there are a number of quilts in here that are just gorgeous. The Prairie Picnic Quilt is this whole kind of a chaining quilt, red, white, and blue, lots of stars, lots of 9 patches, very cute. And I suspect there's probably, if there hasn't already been, there'll be cross-stitch patterns that kind of go with this. I love how she kind of links those two things together. So that is the Lori Holt Prairie Home Quilt. Whew. Okay, for someone who hasn't been sewing, I had a lot to say about sewing. So I'm very excited about some potential projects I've got going here, especially doing the Brightly sampler. So let's move on to other crafts that I'm not doing. I have been knitting, actually. I have a pair of socks on the needles, and I'm almost through the foot of the second sock. And I think it's the same pair I was probably knitting 5 months ago when I went through the show notes. I'm like, oh, the Summer Lee sock tutorials, which is exactly what I'm using now. So that's been fun, and we're definitely getting into sock weather here as it's getting a little bit gloomy here on, when is it? Like November 2nd, 2024. And I had stopped knitting and doing cross stitch because I was having trouble with my shoulder. And, that's been a while now. And so it's not bothering me anymore. So it has been kind of fun to get back to knitting. And I started that elementary wrap, I'm going to say 3 years ago. It's that very large wrap with from Pearl Soho that is knit with fingerling weight yarn. I don't know what fingering weight yarn. I don't know what I was thinking there, but it is probably at least 2/3, if not 3/4 of the way done. So I should pull that out too and start knitting. That's a good idea. I just thought of it right now. In terms of cross stitch, if you've been around for a while, you will remember that I fell hard for cross stitch. Absolutely loved it until I didn't anymore. But I think I'm working my way back to that. What I want to do is I have several finishes. So I cross-stitched a ton and did not, as they say in the biz, fully finish anything. So I've got this like Lori Holt pattern called Flea Market Flowers that I finished ages ago, maybe a year ago, and I want to frame it and I want to put it in the eating area of our kitchen. And I think that would be a really cute place to have some of these a little bit more homey type crafts up there. So and then I also stitched a few of these kind of old-fashioned looking Santa Clauses that I can make into just those little bowl fillers, just turn it into a little pillow, that kind of thing, or turn it into an ornament. And so these are done. I probably have maybe 2 or 3 done. And so I think finishing things should be my my goal here, whether it's finishing those quilts, finishing these cross stitch things, because I like to be a finisher. And I am a process person. I enjoy the process, but I mean, these things take time and money, and I want to enjoy them fully done. So I think that will be a project for me. But I also, Fat Quarter Shops did send me, when they sent me the Lori Holt book, they sent me a few cross-stitch patterns as well. And I'm absolutely in love with this. It's called Stitch Card Set V. She's been working her way through the alphabet, so she's really getting there. And they are very, very cute. So these are very small motifs. In fact, these are, there's 4 of them, and they are 36 by 36 stitches. And according to what they sent me, it's like they're very cute. One is a tulip, one is like a cabin, one has like a sawtooth star, and I guess the other one, I don't know, probably a flower. And what the description here actually says, that these little styles, these little motifs combine 3 of her favorite crafts: cross-stitching, quilting, and crochet. So you'll kind of notice that there's a blossom, log cabin, a snowflake, that's what that was, and a little quilt block. And then it looks like a crocheted doily is the border around them. So she's kind of combining all her loves, and they're very cute. And then the other pattern that I really is very cute, it would be very cute in the kitchen, it is called Hometown Neighborhood, and this is called Sunflower House. And so there's, so this would be kind of like, I assume there's probably other ones in the series. I'm not actually aware of it, but it's a cute house with these big sunflowers on either side, and it has a little quote that says, "Finding beauty in the humblest things make home happy and life lovely." And it's a quote from Louise May Alcott. Super cute. So that might be, maybe I could be persuaded to do something like that for the kitchen too. The house is pink. I don't think I'd make the house pink, but I like all the other colors in there. So anyways, so those are some, if you're a cross stitcher, those are some new patterns by Lori Holt that are very cute. As I mentioned before, what I have been doing is a lot of reading, and I took the advice of Kendra Adachi over at The Lazy Genius to keep track of what I have read and what I'm reading, and my to be read list on a Trello board. I use Trello for my work project, so it was a kind of a no-brainer for me to do that. And I've really liked it because I've just not been good at kind of keeping track of what I've read. So that's how I know that I've read about 30 books this year. And I'm just not sure how to count the ones that I kind of abandon. So I'm not going to, I've read a ton in the last 5 months. I won't go over all of them, but I did want to share a few highlights with you. The most recent finish is the new Louise Penny book that came out last week. It came out Tuesday, and it is now Sunday. I mean, I think I read it in 3 days. And now I'm going to go back and listen to the audiobook. I purchased them both, but I did actually spend more time reading this one. And I loved it. It's her 19th book, and it is a little bit different than her previous books. I would call it more of a thriller than a mystery, which is interesting because when she wrote State of Terror with Hillary Clinton, she was nervous about it because she'd never written a thriller. She was a mystery writer. So now that I guess she's got some thriller chops now. I mean, there are mysteries to be solved in in it, as there often are in thrillers. So don't get me wrong, there are dead bodies. 100%. So if you are a Louise Penny fan, I don't think you need my endorsement to go read it, but it was very good, and it brings back, there's some three pines in it, not as much as I would have liked. There's actually, it takes place in Montreal more. You actually get to visit Armand and Reine-Marie's home in Montreal, which has never really been done, I don't think. And if you read, is it The Beautiful Mystery? I think it's The Beautiful Mystery that takes place in the monastery. We're going to visit that again. We visit another monastery. So it's it brings back a lot of characters in the Sûreté that have come up in previous books. So it's very well rounded. The pacing. Actually, at the very beginning, I thought it was a little slow to start. I'd said to a couple of people, I thought it was more telling and not showing. But I think it was really it's that awkward thing in a long-running series where you're trying to bring people up to speed if this is the first book they've read. So I'm just like, okay, let's get to the good stuff. But it picked up very quickly. And it all starts with a phone call that Gamache gets like on a Sunday afternoon that he won't take, that he keeps letting it ring and ring and ring, and then when he finally answers it, he like yells something into the phone and hangs up, and you're like, what is going on there? And just a lot of weird things start to happen that they're trying to put together, and there is as in some past books, there is a large conspiracy happening that he needs to unravel in a very short period of time, kind of deal. So I definitely recommend it. The reader, they have a new reader, and I really liked, I think, the last one, which I know that a lot of people didn't like. I think his name is Robert Bathurst, but his voice really is so Gamache to me. Although there are some women's voices that he did that drove me out of my mind. But this new guy is actually, I hope I say this right, Quebecois. So he's from Quebec. So it's Quebecois. And it's more authentic, I believe, and I'd like to think like, oh, this is what Jean-Guy actually sounds like, but he's a little bit hard to understand in places, which I found interesting. So I'm going to re-listen to the whole thing as the audiobook, and but I mean, he's good. I've got no complaints. It's just that there's something about that. That last reader he was British, and he just had this very deep, resonant voice, and I loved it. And so this will just take a little bit of getting used to. I don't know why he's not doing it. If he's done many of them, maybe he's just retiring. I don't really know. Okay, so that's The Gray Wolf by Louise Penny. I also listened to Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, which won the Pulitzer Prize. And that was also a really good reader. And it is a modern retelling of the story of David Copperfield. And I realized I knew that going in, and at some point I'm like, I don't think I know the story of David Copperfield, which turns out to be true. But when I did, there's some character names that are there's like, well, besides Demon Copperhead, are little twists on, like there's a character called Peggotty in David Copperfield, and it's Aunt Peg in Demon Copperhead, things like that, which were very clever. But it is a story where Kingsolver really goes into tackling the opioid crisis, kind of in Appalachia. And it's a story of a kid who is just, it's like his mom's a drug addict, and he just has been, they're poor, and he's just been dealt a bad hand in life, and he goes through foster care, and you just see, it's like, it is not this kid's fault. He is just put in to these situations where it's just absolutely inevitable that he is going to have issues with addiction. And so it kind of gives you a lot of empathy and insight into how this can happen. But it's beautifully written. There were many times that I just thought, oh my gosh, that is the most beautiful way to describe that thought, that feeling, that situation, something that you could relate to and just say. So she is a master with words. So I definitely recommend that. Then I was influenced, again, by Kendra Daci from The Lazy Genius, and others, I guess, to try reading Stephen King. So he was one of my bucket list authors. Like, I should try a Stephen King. Now, I am not a horror person. I am not a scary person. So I'm not going to read, these like horror books. But the book I started with him is called 11/22/63, which is the date you might recognize that JFK was shot. And it's a very thick book. And I did a combination of reading and listening to that. I had the library book, and then I had the book from Audible. Audible, they send me, because we are Prime members, they're like, would you like to join Audible for 99 cents for 3 months? And then you can cancel anytime. So I'm just like, sure. And then I cancel, and I've got my 3 books. So that's how I get these books. Same thing with The Grey Wolf. It was 99 cents through Audible. Anyways, so this book, 11/22/63, is a time travel book where this guy, Jake, finds out that there is sort of a portal back in time that takes you to one very specific date and time. You can't go anywhere. You go to this very specific date in, I think it's 1958. And the person who found this portal, but needs someone else to take over his mission, after just using it for fun things like buying things that were cheaper back then and just seeing what it was like to live in the 50s, realizes that maybe you can go back and change things. And he works up this whole theory that if he can prevent JFK from being assassinated, then all of these other things would not happen. The U.S. would not get into the Vietnam War, and he's just constructed this whole thing that the race issues would not happen, all kinds of civil rights things. And so he convinces this guy that to take up this mission, to go back there and change that. And so he's got a lot of time to kill. I mean, depending on when he wants to do this, between 1958 and 1963. So, he goes back and has a life. And it's very interesting. It's a great book. So I read it in the summer, and then we went on a family vacation to Pismo Beach for a week. The very, very chill, very relaxing vacation. All the kids came in for it. And I thought, Chloe would like it. My daughter Chloe, a big reader, and I think she read it. It's this big book. I don't know how many pages. It's like 800 pages or something. She read it in 2 days. And then we sat outside on the balcony with a glass of wine and kind of, discussed all the nuances of it. And now my husband's reading it. And so we're all working our way through it. So then my husband said, well, now that you've, read Stephen King, you should try The Stand. I love The Stand. I love The Stand movies and stuff. And so then I read The Stand. Actually, I didn't read that one very much at all. I listened to it as an audiobook, which is 47 hours long. I got the extended version. Apparently, 10 years ago, Stephen King kind of rewrote it and put in all the stuff they made him cut the first time. He added like 200 pages to it. I didn't know there were multiple versions of it. I just got the one from Audible. And it is, okay, The Stand it's supernatural. There is a little bit gory, but I'm a mystery reader. I can handle that. It's not my normal cup of tea, but my husband really wanted me to read it, so I did, and I absolutely enjoyed it. Stephen King is an amazing writer. He goes into an amazing amount of detail. So this whole thing is running like a movie in your head. I mean, I was making this joke about this one point in the book where it's like this guy walks across the room to pick up the phone and dial, but I mean, he's described the floor and the table and the doily on the table and the color of the phone and the number that he's dialing and what he's thinking while all this is, it's just the detail is crazy. I didn't realize that is what Stephen King is all about, but he is an amazing writer. And so I knocked that one off. And the other one that I just wanted to share is a series that I read. I knocked back a bunch of these during vacation, which is a series of books called Maisie Dobbs. And I read the first one. I remember very clearly reading the first Maisie Dobbs when it was on my son's birthday party. So Jonah was, I think, turning 12 or 13. So this is well over 10 years ago, and we were at one of those airsoft, paintball places. And so they were all out there doing their paintball thing, and I just sat in the van. I set up the table for the cake and the lunch and everything, and I just sat there and read this book. So I started them a very long time ago. And I don't know why I lost track of it, but I just did. But so I got from Libby the second book in the series, and then loved it. Had to go back and reread the first one, and now I think I'm on about the sixth one. So Maisie Dobbs, it takes place in kind of the early 1900s. She is a nurse in World War I. She's actually a girl from humble beginnings, who just falls in with this rich family where she becomes she goes into service. And but she is just identified as being special and very smart, and they kind of take her under their wing, give her a very special education, and she goes off to college, and she abandons that with World War I and becomes a nurse. Some terrible things happen to her, but she comes back and she becomes an investigator, a psychologist / investigator, and in her specialized education through a particular man. She is absolutely an investigator, but she knows a lot about people from the psychology background, and so she's out there solving mysteries in every book, but they're fun to read. And she's just a character, one of those characters that you just aspire to be. Oh, I wish I was just like Maisie Dobbs, kind of thing. So I really enjoyed those. So that is like the tip of the iceberg on some books that I've been enjoying for what it's worth. All right, let's move on to TV shows, which it's so funny. I mean, I know I've watched a million TV shows, and when I was really in the rhythm of doing the podcast all the time, I always just jotted them down so I wouldn't forget. Well, that's out the window when I was telling my husband, I know we watched a million shows, and now I can't think of any of them. But so I'll just tell you some of the highlights from lately. Well, the first thing we did is we watched The Stand, because that was the thing when I was finished with the book. My husband's like, we need to watch it. So there's two versions of that sort of, let's call it a mini series. One from the 90s that has like Molly Ringwald in it and Rob Lowe, kind of all the stars from that time. And then it was redone in 2020. And kind of one of the reasons that got me reading it is I listened to a podcast with, it's called 10 Things to Tell You, with Laura Tremaine, who her husband is in Hollywood, so she knows a lot of people, and she talked to one of her friends who worked on the screenplay for the more recent version of The Stand, and they just really dove into the book, which made me want to read it. And so this version of The Stand, which we watched through Amazon Prime, has James Marsden in it. It's got Greg Kinnear. It's got Whoopi Goldberg, who coincidentally has the role of Mother Abigail, this sage type figure. And she almost played it in the first version in the 90s with makeup to make her look old. But she had a conflict. But now she was, old enough to just play the old woman straight up this time. So anyways, that was good. It was faithful to the book in many ways. They definitely went different directions, but I could see why they would make the choices that they did to differ from the book. So I did enjoy that. The Only Murders in the Building, the new season recently came out there. We watched that, and that's been wonderful. And they keep doing a really great job every season, and they keep getting more and more, fun people on it. And I can't believe that Meryl Streep is still on it, and Paul Rudd, and so that's been really fun. We came across a show, I think this one was on Hulu, called The Old Man, and it has Jeff Bridges, John Lithgow, and Amy Brenneman. And I can't think of her name, but if you watched Arrested Development, or she was maybe, I can't think of what her name is. But anyways, it's kind of a thriller show where Jeff Bridges and John Lithgow are, they're frenemies that from old days in the CIA and FBI. And like John Lithgow kind of helped Jeff Bridges out of a bind many years ago, but the deals and the things that they were doing, back when they were, let's just say, in their 20s, are coming back to haunt them in their 60s. Maybe more, probably late 60s. And a lot of this takes place in like Afghanistan, and Amy Brenneman kind of unwittingly is just like a normal person who gets like caught up in it and really goes along for the ride. So I think that was 2 seasons. And I'd never heard of it, but you just can't beat Jeff Bridges. So that was really fun. I got a new computer, a Mac, which I love, and with it, we got like 3 months of Apple TV, so we were able to watch Bad Monkey. Now, Bad Monkey is a show based on a book by Carl Hiaasen. I've read several Carl Hiaasen books. They are hilarious. They all take place in Florida and have like these really crazy characters. And so they made Bad Monkey into a show starring Vince Vaughn, who I wouldn't say I'm a huge Vince Vaughn fan. He's a little over the top, but he is hilarious in this role of this sort of disgraced detective down in the Florida Keys. It's really fun. I love the Florida Keys, so that's always fun to see that. It takes place in that and the Bahamas. And he's uncovering this very complicated plot to, steal money from people in the Bahamas. So that was really fun. And then more on my murder mystery side, those are the shows I watch with my husband, but like while I'm knitting or whatever, I love my little mysteries. And I was like, what have I watched? I can't even remember. But On PBS, recently they came out with the Moonflower Murders, which is a season 2 of the Magpie Murders, which was a real book. I don't know if the Moonflower Murders really were, but it's the same protagonist in that. So that was is also very fun to just kind of continue her story. So she in the Magpie Murders, which I know I've talked about. She's like an editor, and her big best-selling author dies, and so she spends the whole show unraveling why that happened. And then she moves to Greece with the love of her life, but she gets dragged back in the Moonflower Murders to another mystery of this crazy thing that happens on someone's wedding day. So if you have PBS, that is a really fun show as well. All right. Well, I just kind of wanted to wrap up here with a little bit of what's been going on in the house. I think I have mentioned that I want to, in the next, every year I say it's 5 years, but I want to really tackle the maintenance on our house so that by the time we retire, everything's in pretty good shape. Not that we're retiring anytime soon. I don't know when that's happening, but a couple years ago, we redid the master bathroom. Last year, we tackled the kids' rooms and had them painted, bought furniture, not finished decorating them, but they're nice little Airbnb rooms. Is what they feel like right now. And so this year we've tackled, we painted. What's funny is a lot of these things we've not done in a starkly different way than they were before. So we've spent a lot of money and things just kind of seem the same, which is a little sad. But we had the outside of the house painted, which was nice. Just one of those things that needed to be happened, but we actually just needed to do all the trim. And it's not actually the main color of the house, and so it's all exactly the same. But that felt good. We had the family room painted, which is more the color I wish I had painted the kids' rooms. Sadly, what else? We reupholstered the sofa. We bought a new leather chair. Did you know? My husband has this leather chair that he loves, but the back of the cushion was really squished down and it didn't look good. And I found out that I just took that to my reupholsterer and they rewrapped it and stuffed it and it looks like brand new now. So that was actually really nice. So we just like those kinds of things we've been tackling, and it's felt pretty good. We just it's one of those things. Oh, we also got new air conditioning. We had a 37-year-old air conditioning unit, and we had kept it alive for so many years, and it finally died. And so that was definitely one of those things that I wanted to tackle before. I didn't want something big like that to fail later on. So, and then the more exciting thing. That happened this week is we got some new dishes, and I've been wanting new dishes for a long time. We had these Crate and Barrel ones, which I really liked, but it's got that problem. I like stoneware type dishes, and I think it's a common problem that if they're like white or off-white, the utensils, over time, as you scrape them, they leave these gray marks, and they're not really scratched. Apparently, you could get them off if you really scrubbed with some Barkeeper's Friend, which I don't really want to do. So they kind of look like heck, and they just from years of having kids and stuff, they were chipped. And on one level, I would have just bought, if they used to have a lot of really nice colors for this. It's called the Marin collection. And I would have just gotten like a mix of colors and stuff, but they don't have good colors anymore. And the best way to buy dishes is always buy the set. So they were like something crazy, like $14 a plate. I'm just like, okay, I'm not doing that. So I bought a new set of dishes that through like All Modern that are like, they're so perfect. There's like an off-white one, a blue one, a green one, and a gray one. So like in a set of 4, it's that mix of colors. And so we bought a couple sets, and it just feels like, they were not even that expensive. And I think we're at the point in our lives now that we're not going to chip them. It was just like that little upgrade in life that feels good. We also got like new drinking glasses, and I know when the kids are going to come home, they're going to be like, "Wow." Because things are like different in that way. But I'll put the set in the show notes. They're very cute, and like they're exactly what I was looking for. So it's always fun to have those little upgrades. Oh, speaking of upgrades, there's one more thing that we did. During Amazon's last, I want to call it fake Prime Day. They had one in October. We upgraded our robot vacuum. And I've had two. We had like a Roomba and then a Eufy. The Eufy was never that good, to be honest with you. But they were both the type of robot vacuums that just kind of bounce around all over the house. And I'm like, if I'm going to get another one, I'm going to get one that maps. So we got a Roborock Q5 Max or something. And it was on it was Prime Day. And so when it leaves its little dock, it the first time you do it, it has it's called LiDAR. It's like it's like this little camera or something where it's seeing, and it maps out the room, and then it does this very efficient back and forth through the room, and then goes to the next room, and it maps it out, and it does it. And then, so we had to do it all downstairs, and then I've broken it up into rooms. So now through my phone, I can just say, go do the kitchen and family room, which are the two rooms that are on the back of the house, and they just put the dogs in and out. They're the ones that need it the most often. And so it's been very cool. It's been I run it like every other day, and what a difference it makes to have the floor in the, looking really good. We've mapped out the upstairs, and I can just say, just do the master bedroom, so anyways, that has been another one of like the great upgrades in my old age here. Well, anyways, that is about it for this week. As always, I will put all the things I talk about in the show notes with links. And for what it's worth, I'm online at Instagram as Kristen Esser. We've got the Simple Handmade Everyday private Facebook group, which I admit I have absolutely let languish, and I'm sorry about that. But I'm just in this part of my life where the social media equation just wasn't working for me. So who knows where that will go in the future. But I just wanted to thank you for spending this time with me, and have a great week.